Oh, good evening, ladies and spirias. Old burnout dirtbag Uncle Fucker here. Wearing my mysterious superhero gloves. On a more serious note, after spending countless hours in this garage making music, which I can easily do by turning this way. But that is not the subject of this evening's discourse. Instead, I've decided to change it up for the handful of skate enthusiasts that I have subscribed over the years. My most watched videos, ironically, are not music videos at all, but are skating videos, so I'm going to break it up tonight. And after having raided the neighbor's garbage cans, retrieving some Christmas lights that were brand new, and also a shotgun cover, genuine faux imitation leather, but is a usable thing. I'm back in the garage. Anyway, so I appreciate the number of people who have watched the skate videos that seem very distant to me, like ages ago that I was involved with the sport. My father passed away May the 6th of this last year, so the first anniversary of his death will be coming up in about 3 weeks. So needless to say, your attention, your priorities become different whenever someone in your immediate family passes. But in thinking of the handful of skaters that have appreciated the knowledge that I've purveyed in some of these videos, including the surf skate video that has about 80,000 hits, I said, okay, tonight this is going to be a longboard symposium. So I'm going to speed up my talk a little bit. I have a skateboard collection, and I have a hobby of assembling vintage boards. I've studied the skate history. I'm 57. I grew up in the 70s during the skate craze, pioneered by the Z-Boys. One of the boys was always with one of the boys. The Z-Boys, the Zephyr skate team, which was created by Skip Ingblom and Jeff Ho in their surf shop in Santa Monica, I believe, at the Pacific Ocean Park Pier. And Jay Adams' stepfather took over Zephyr and turned it into Z-Flex and continued to make those extremely rare and valuable Cadillac skateboards. I've had several Z-Flexes, 2 only, really. 3. One was a reissue. Anyway, I have the Jimmy Plumer reissue model upstairs. It's the blue fiberglass model. It is a reissue, but it's not the reissue that Jay was pitching before he died, which was this boxed version that was not meant to be ridden. It was signed. But my Jimmy Plume, or my blue one, my fiberglass one upstairs, is a bona fide reissue that you can ride. So my yellow Z-Flex that I recreated the original Z-Boys board sold for $675 on eBay with sure grip trucks and stokers. So anyway, I have one Z-Flex board left upstairs that is not set up. I'm going to hang out onto. Anyway, so I've studied this the history of skating. I grew up during that time. I have several years, about 2.5 years of Skateboarder magazines right over here in my garage. And so I have a genuine interest and knowledge, therefore, of having studied the ads and the videos. So I know probably more about vintage skate equipment than most people. And I assemble the boards. The collection is basically a reflection of skate history product. So I've got plastic boards, I've got aluminum boards, I have wood boards, I have fiberglass boards. I have a good representation of all of the skateboards that came from all the way back to the 1950s. But I have a few over here against the wall. But tonight, in particular, because I have been bored with music, and I haven't been a big longboarder, but I enjoy watching the videos on YouTube, especially of the girls that are skating. I find that to be really refreshing, and not that Uncle Fucker here is a dirty old man, but I think that at this day and age and time of Trump, that anything that you can find that stimulates and makes you happy is a positive thing. So, needless to say, I have a pair of, which some folks may not know, that these are slide gloves. These are Sector 9s. These are nice leather gloves, basically. But until you watch a video and do a bit of study to understand what the downhill slide is. There was an article in Skateboard magazine called "The Art of the Downhill Slide," probably by Craig Stesick. One of the first articles to appear in Skateboard magazine. And still, probably most people aren't really familiar with that tenet of skating, 70s style surf skating, because you have to have a place to do it, and the place was California. And it was those hills that lent themselves to a particular kind of downhill skating and sliding that you can't do, say, on the East Coast. And so a bit of study to have to go back and look at this history. But anyway, you'll see Stacy riding a normal Powell Peralta shortboard, and they get going down the hill, and their wheels, unlike, say, a Road Rider 85A, although you can slide any durometer of wheel, this is something I haven't gotten into because I'm too old. The harder the wheel on certain surfaces, the more easily it's going to slip and allow you to do a controlled slide. And so that's what they were doing, probably riding 92 durometer, and you're going down the hill, and you lay back, and you put your hands down, and with these nifty pads, pucks, you get the board sliding, and you lay back on your hands, and you slide on the pavement. So your board is sliding underneath your 2 feet, and your hands are also sliding on the pavement. And Stacy et al. And his group would be doing this in various geometric configurations of acrobatics, but mostly that your hands are sliding and your board is sliding at the same time, and you have to be going quickly, nonetheless, to make this happen. So that's what these are. I've never used them. But they were nice, and they were reasonable, and it made me feel good to buy them. And I have them in case I want to get inspired to fly to California and ride down one of those hills. But anyway, that is a introduction to this evening's topic, which is longboard trucks. So I'm going to show you a handful of differing and interesting longboard setups. I hope you'll find this entertaining, enjoyable, and enlightening. Possibly, if you go back early enough to the movie is Freewheelin' with Camille Darren and Stacy Peralta, and Stacy was the star of Freewheeling. I find that, and Tom Sims is in that, and Kenny Means. That's a very nice, warm-hearted skate film. But at the very beginning of the flick, you see Paul Constantino in his worn-out, maybe Vans, hang tinning on the front of a homemade wooden stick, coming down a concrete path on something that would be very similar to this. So this was my first homemade longboard. I don't know what the wood is. It's pretty good quality wood. You learn to make your kicktail by gluing another piece of wood on the tail and then using a rasp to shape it like it's a continuous piece of wood. And that's how we did it. You glue a piece of wood on and you use a rasp. And you do the same thing with your wheel wells, so that even though I have risers, when you turn, the wheel is going to hit the bottom of the board, so the aesthetic is you cut you some wheel wells out, and this ended up being a really nice symmetrical stick. I experimented with lots of different setups, but the basic one when I really aspire to find the best chosen setup, the origins, the grassroots of any board, where it comes from and why that setup works. You have to go with trackers. Trackers were in use before Bennett's. Mr. Bennett came out with the Bennett Hijacker and the Bennett Pro made from aircraft aluminum. Tracker was first, and so they were the most used by the guys, the boys, the Logans. Where were they from? There was a feud between the Z-Boys and the other guys, the uptown rich guys, the girls. Anyway, when you're watching them, Henry Hester do downhill and slalom, the majority of those riders are using trackers. And I'm not going to get sidetracked in this, tracker has an array of different hanger widths. Jay Adams started with the half track, which was the thinnest, the most narrow, more similar to the original sure grip truck that Jeff and Skip used on the Z-Flex board, which basically was a roller skate truck. Sure grip has been in existence since the 30s, I think. So they already had the best truck out there. Skip, they decided to, well, let's steal this great roller skate truck and stick it on a skateboard. And so really the Z-Boys weren't. They did ride Chicago's to begin with, but the Sure Grip was the better of the trucks because it was made by a skate company that had high sales and kids were roller skating. So skating has been popular probably more through the years than skateboarding was. So the Tracker half track was more the size of the original Sure Grip, and so that's what Jay rode on his Z-Flex with OJs. I think they were OJs, they were orange, but they were wider than what the normal OJ was. So Jay was riding a Z-Flex with a half track tracker and a set of big fat wide OJs. These are full tracks. The half track, the mid track, the full track, the X track, and the 6 track. And the 6 track is the widest. So anyway, because this is an old board from the 70s, it had to be trackers, ended up being full tracks. You have to use the vintage white or gray hard plastic riser pads, and these are Kryptonics wheels. So that was the first longboard I ever made. It certainly wasn't set up with this setup because I didn't learn about the history until later. So there's your homemade Paul Constantino bombing a hill, and freewheeling. Okay, so second to that, what you also might see, it's not in freewheeling, it's in, which video is that in? Might be freewheeling, Go For It, Hal Jepsen. Anyway, they do a camera shot the camera is mounted underneath the board, and they're doing slalom down the hill in California, and they're laser trucks, right? So the laser trucks were really one of the best trucks way back in the 70s before Mr. Bennett came along and basically kind of put everybody out of business. So the laser truck really is a very valuable and sought after thing. This is a fairly narrow axle, but this is set up very much the way Tom Sims would ride. Rest in peace, Tom Sims. He died of a heart attack not that long ago. He was close to my age, in his 50s, and little do most people know that he invented snowboarding, Tom Sims. So all of this sport that we have today really would not be happening if it weren't for Tom Sims. Anyway, he rode a bull rider. He made this wheel, this long, odd thing, and he rode a longboard very similar to this. This is actually a Powell Soul Patrol longboard. I have two of these. It has a really nice graphic on it there. It took me a while to find out exactly when this was made, and I think it was made, even though this really looks a lot like Stacy Peralta, looks a lot like him. It may have been a time when he left Powell for a bit, and it became just Powell skateboards again. But anyway, this is a nice laminate. It doesn't have fiberglass in there, but it looks like about a 5-ply wood laminate. Anyway, Tom, they would ride downhill because they were in California on these long winding hills, and so these long wheels slow you down actually because you have a larger footprint. That means you got more urethane touching the pavement, which slows your speed down. So when you get out there on those hills, these longer wheels kind of moderate your speed so you're not going to fall and break your neck. So that ended up being a nice combination to emulate Tom Sims's board. Laser trucks and Sims bull riders. Okay, and the other side of the coin is here's another one of the same exact board. It's a Powell Soul Patrol. I set this one up differently, something that I'm thinking that I might want to ride. So it's got reissue Bennett vectors on it, and these are ABAC 11 retro zigzags, I'm pretty sure. They come in a variety of sizes and durometers, but this has hands down become my favorite skating wheel, ABAC 11 retro zigzags. 83, 86A, 66 millimeter. These are great wheels. The closest that I've been able to find to Road Rider 6s. I love them. Bennett vectors. I don't ride this much. I find it to be a little bit light and springy. Not so much to my taste, but if I do want to go out and feel just comfortable on a longboard, chances are it's going to be that in the future. Going back to the Sims era, which we haven't really left it yet, Tom Sims. Here we have a Tom Sims model that's fairly common. This is an oak longboard, nice logo on the bottom of it. Heavy wood kicktail, and so how is it that you're going to set that up? Say it's back in the late 1970s. What are you going to do with this board? Well, in watching the movie Skateboard with Leif Garrett, gave me the answer, and it's going to be you're going to be doing downhill because you're going to use that heavy oak wood to give you speed, and of course your choice of truck is going to be probably the first reverse kingpin truck, which is the Gullwing. Here's the Gullwing, and these aren't gold the way that they were sold. These are silver, and they're pretty beat up, but they function, and they're a very good example of probably the first reverse kingpin truck, so that when you get going down the hill, you're not going to get speed wobbles, or your front truck is not going to slalom like it'll happen in a normal geometry truck. So these are Gullwings, and of course if you notice these Apex mag wheels that have got metal hubs in them. These are fairly desirable too. So that is a very interesting stick. Longboard. Okay, so now I'm going to deviate, which was the more interesting topic that I had for this retro throwback to skating, which is longboard trucks and the variety of them and what is interesting. And so I'm going to start with, what am I going to start with? Oh, I'll go backwards. From most common to least common. You're doing downhill, you're doing longboards, reverse kingpin trucks are the norm because they don't slalom, so you can go fast, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down the hill. They have a really low center of gravity. They're mounted, drop in through the board, so it gets the wheels really low, really close, and so therefore you got to have a cutout, because if you turn, the wheel is going to hit the underside of the board. I don't do a lot of downhill because we don't have that in this area, but I am interested in all of the skateboard technology. So these are your standard Reichle trucks, right? And this is a drop speed board that I customize. I cut my own shape out because I like to carve, so even if you're going downhill, you can flip the hanger on the Reichle and you can make it, you can carve on it. So I cut these out so that you can carve on this board tightly enough to enjoy doing that. Then you can flip the hangers and you could go downhill. So Reichles and ABEC 11 strikers. Got a bit of a rounded lip, and I'm not sure the durometer. There's 77 millimeter. What is the durometer? 88A. They're pretty hard. Word up is you can slide on these wheels. So those are strikers. Reichles. Staying within that, Reichles. And then the most next common thing to Reichle, just going back about 10 years when you're talking about reverse kingpin trucks, Paris trucks. They became probably the next most popular. These are Paris trucks. Again, ABEC 11 retro zigzags. These are 70 millimeters. Nice setup. This is a GNS 44-inch longboard, laminated wood. I bought this on purpose because I thought if I was going to longboard, this would be the board that I would want to have. It's a Gordon & Smith. It's laminated. That's what I'm used to riding. So these are Paris trucks, reverse kingpin, and a nice 44-inch GNS flexi longboard. I haven't ridden it very much. I haven't ridden anything much in a couple of years, but a nice board. Basic reverse kingpin truck. Alright, now to get a bit more interesting, when you're talking about wanting to carve, slalom, and do turny things rather than just bombing hills, probably Sector 9, is it Sector 9? Would be the first company that allowed you to do that, and they came up with this interesting truck design, right, which is a two-piece thingy-dingy. And it has what you would call a throw-out bearing. So it's a two-parted truck, right, with this upper pivot on it. These are called sidewinders. So Gullwing made these, the exact truck on the front and the back. This is also a GNS pintail. When I bought it, it was maybe 6 or 7 inches longer than this, but it had been beat ridden, and so the flex was gone, so I cut it down and turned it into just a regular pintail. But this is very common if you were to go and look up Gullwing Sidewinder and you want to flex and turn. This is the unit that Gullwing would sell. This is the way that it's set up, right? So that's a very interesting, this two-part truck with a throw-out bearing that allows you to turn sharper than a normal skateboard truck. So that's very innovative for the time. Sidewinder. And so similarly to that, but much later in the game, they've been around a long time. Sector 9 makes most of your kind of stock shelf. Damn, these are all going to fall over. Isn't that funny? This is the way that it is. Drama. Anyway, Sector 9, if you go to any surf shop in the mall, The on-the-shelf garbage is going to be Sector 9 stuff. The wood is really stiff and the bearings are cheap, but they have some decent products. You're just not going to find them on the shelf when you go to the mall surf shop, so search for something else. They've been around a long time and they're a staple in the skate industry, and that's cool. Similarly, Carver came along, and in a similar technology to the Sidewinder trucks, they created the C7, which is like this. It's very similar, but it's not the same. It doesn't have two pivots, but it does have this weird throwout bearing on the front, right, that allows you to carve as sharply as you would on a surfboard. So this is the C7 Carver, and it comes with their really tall matching back truck. I just set this up 2 days ago. I had this set up on a Sims Longboard reissue, a laminate, and it wasn't right. And so I watched a couple of videos on YouTube of the girl riding a Corey something model 31 inch, and they're riding these C7s and it's on a 31 inch and they're cutting short, and I went, that's the better choice. Trying to navigate all that longboard with that sharp turn ups the difficulty level. So this gave a purpose to my Arbor Bogart, which is made out of bamboo, and I've had this for a long time. It's weird because it's not, it doesn't have a rocker, it has a camber. So it's like this. So when you're riding this, your back foot is here, it's bending the opposite way, which is weird to me. I still didn't quite understand it, but when you push that in a turn, you spring it, it's going to pop you back out. So I went, okay, I'm going to put these tight turning surf skate Carver C7s on there, and that's going to make that a more appropriate setup. So very happy to have come upon that. And those are Tunnel Rock reissues. They're amber. Keep going. Here is a torsion truck. So we've got a reverse kingpin. We've got this double action Sidewinder C7 that has a throughout bearing, which gives you two parts to the truck. This is a torsion truck made by Revenge, and it's got a huge rubber bushing in it, basically, and all this is a pivot with a big bushing, and the truck just does this. It torques, it just spins on this axis, right? So that is made by Revenge, and this is a Sector 9 cheapy downhill board, but you can see there's kind of a common shape going here with this convex. Is that what that is? I can't remember what it is, but these are Revenge torsion trucks, and these are big fat Sector 9 9 balls, which are actually really nice riding wheels. So that's an interesting design. I have acid reflux because I quit taking omeprazole about 2 weeks ago. I'm going to get off of that stuff. To make things even a bit more interesting, we go to this, and this is a honey deck, right, made by the company Honey.